is Ms. Ocasio-Cortez from New York.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think some of the points made earlier today that disaster response and relief is historically and continues to be genuinely an area of bipartisan work. And my hope is that we can continue to protect these programs. In fact, one of the things that was brought up earlier, Administrator Criswell, was the National Flood Insurance Program, the NFIP. I'd previously served several terms on the Financial Services Committee, which also has jurisdiction over the authorizations around the National Flood Insurance Program. And a lot of people don't know that the maps for the NFIP and what is considered a flood zone or not are tied to flood maps from before the federal government even acknowledged that climate change is real. And so we are allocating flood insurance from before these areas became flood zones that are now flood zones. And so historically, there's been a great deal of Republican resistance to updating these maps. My hope is that we can do that now. But I wanted to move a little bit into your work and what we're seeing now in the current information environment, especially after a disaster. Administrator Criswell, recently in North Carolina and with these storms and hurricanes that have hit this year, there have been very large-scale moments of disinformation regarding FEMA, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
One of those that I've just seen is this idea that, and I'm going to ask you if this is true or not, and I apologize that I even have to ask you some of these things, but I think it's important for the American people to see in a setting like this, where we have to swear to tell the truth, that we see officially on the record that these things are not true. The first being that the suggestion that FEMA assistance was only a $750 loan that would have to be paid back, and if not, FEMA would seize the homes of everyday people who may not be able to make that back in such a catastrophic moment. Is that correct?
That is completely inaccurate.
Completely false, correct? But was it in your assessment, and did you see lots of people believing this on the ground or in the field?
I was on the ground for over 3 weeks in North Carolina, and I did hear from people on the ground asking me, is this real or is this not real?
Another one that I also saw very widely circulated, that FEMA did not have enough money to provide relief services because that allocation of funds went to either undocumented immigrants, aid to Ukraine, or even aid to the Israeli government. Is that correct, that FEMA's funds were allocated away to those causes?
Completely inaccurate.
Completely false. On the record, completely false, correct?
Correct.
And other things that we've seen as well, that it's standing policy for FEMA to politically discriminate. We know that that's not true, correct?
Correct.
And there was an incident we see, but that individual was fired, and that this is not a policy at scale, correct?
Correct.
Now, we know that these are important pieces, very large and influential pieces of disinformation, but I want to talk about the harm of that. Because if you are a FEMA worker canvassing door to door, you need to knock on people's doors and see what help they need, correct?
Yes.
Now, I know, as someone who's a target of large amounts of misinformation and disinformation, people will sometimes, and I genuinely want to separate this from a partisan accusation, but it is very important to say that if someone thinks that a FEMA official is coming to their house to take their house away, that's a situation that could be escalatory or potentially become violent over something that's not true, correct?
Correct.
I mean, I've had people that have come to me in an escalatory way because they've believed something about me on the internet that was completely false. And that's just me, let alone an anonymous FEMA official who does not have the same level of resources to be able to combat that kind of misinformation. And then on top of that, when people do believe these kinds of things, what is the harm to the communities that then get convinced of these mistruths?
I think, Congresswoman, one of the best stories that I can share with you was when I was in Chimney Rock, North Carolina, and I was talking to the leadership there. And Chimney Rock is the area where there were accusations that there were physical threats to our FEMA staff, where We temporarily moved all of our staff into fixed locations. When I talked to that leadership team there, they said, this is not who we are. This is looking bad on my community. Tourists may not want to come visit my community, but let alone we need your help. The people in this community need to register for assistance, and now we have to make sure that they understand that the government is there to help them and encourage them to apply for assistance so they can start their road to recovery. I think that is a really good example of how it not just impacts an individual, but impacts an entire community and their reputation and who they believe they are, and now who the public writ large thinks they are.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Gentle